Hi, everyone. My name is Nicollette Gooding. I am a Master's of Social Work student at the University of Toronto, currently completing my practicum with First Safer Space. I'm excited to share some information today about child and forced marriage in the violence against women sector and how it can affect us personally and those around us, just so that it can be supportive in, whether you're a future practitioner or just somebody that's going to be working with vulnerable communities. It is really important to be mindful of the signs and also what the effects are of both child and forced marriage. While parents and family members often marry their daughters as a way to protect them from harm, this belief is actually mistaken. Child and forced marriage expose girls and women to intimate partner violence, including sexual, physical, psychological, and emotional violence. Child and forced marriage is a form of violence which disproportionately affects girls and women all over the world. Research suggests that ending child marriage would reduce intimate partner violence by more than 10% in places like Ethiopia, Nigeria, and Uganda. Often young girls who marry before 18 are more likely to face violence from an intimate partner throughout their life due to unequal gender-based power dynamics. The greater the age difference with their husbands, the more likely they are going to experience violence. Globally, girls who marry before the age of 15 are almost 50% more likely to have experienced physical or sexual violence from a partner than girls married after the age of 18. Child brides, for example, are more likely to believe that a man is justified in beating his wife. Globally, 44% of girls aged 15 to 19 think a husband or partner is justified in hitting or beating his wife or partner. Those in forced marriages are often under a lot of pressure from their husbands and families, keeping them from making their own decisions about their lives, bodies, and choices. Lasting effect on girls' and women's mental health can have severe detrimental effects, both long and short term. In the United States, women who were child brides were 3 times more likely to develop an antisocial personality disorder than those who married as adults. Many forced marriages involve first sexual experiences as forced. Due to the age difference in the power dynamics, they often struggle to assert their wishes to their husbands and negotiate safe and consensual sex. Child brides are more likely to contract HIV. In Uganda, the HIV prevalence rate for girls 15 to 19 years of age is higher for married girls, 89%, than unmarried girls, 66%. Why does child and forced marriage happen? Loopholes. So, among the 190 UN member states that have ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Child, 12% have no legal minimum age for marriage that protects girls under the age of 18. Furthermore, many countries where 18 is the minimum age for marriage have legal loopholes which include different minimum ages for girls and boys that allow children to marry with parental consent. Giving parents with decision-making power can be problematic as it takes away children's rights and agency to decide when and who to marry. Often, young girls involved have no say in the matter because the unequal gender power relationships in the household. A lack of birth registration. Globally, 230 million children under the age of 5 have never had their births registered, and more than 100 developing countries do not have efficient public birth registration systems. This means millions of children are living without a birth certificate. So, what does a birth registration have to do with child and forced marriage? So, a birth certificate not only provides information on a child's identity and their specific place of birth, but it also acts as a shield from child marriage and other exploitative violations, including child trafficking and labor. In other words, if somebody is not able to prove their age or identity, then who is to say her marriage is against the law? Climate change. In times of uncertainty and financial struggle, Daughters are often married off as soon as possible. In finding a husband for a daughter, parents believe they are providing for their child without putting additional stress on their current financial situations. Menstruation. So, a girl's first period can be interpreted as a sign that she is ready for motherhood in many parts of the world. However, it has actually been researched that girls are neither physically nor emotionally prepared for marriage, pregnancy, or childbirth until they reach adulthood. According to the World Health Organization, complications from pregnancy and childbirth are the second leading cause of death for girls under the age of 15. Often, the beginning of a girl's period can mark the end of her education because of the fear, shame, embarrassment, and stigma that surrounds menstruation in many parts of the world. In addition, many schools lack functioning, sanitary, and safe toilets, and girls can often not afford products like tampons or pads. When girls are not in school, they are more likely to become child brides. According to Girls Not Brides, an agency that researches child forced marriages, girls who have no education are 3 times more likely to marry by age 18 compared to girls with higher forms of secondary education. However, education should be seen as a powerful weapon against child marriage because the longer a girl stays in school, the less likely she will get married before the age of 18. Conflict. During times of conflict, war, and civil unrest, girls become increasingly vulnerable to child marriage. Displacement, instability, harsh living conditions, the threat of violence, and poverty lead families to marry off their daughters, either to protect them from potential violence or, again, to alleviate financial stresses. In most cases, parents think they're doing what's best for their daughter by agreeing her to marriage. According to the United Nations, there has been an alarming rise in child marriage rates since the onset of Syrian refugees. In a survey of about 2,400 refugee women and girls, more than a third between 20 and 24 years old had been married before the age of 18, and among refugee girls aged 15 and 17, 24% were married. So what is Canada doing? Canada is raising awareness and generating action to end this harmful practice of forced and child marriage. The United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development includes a target to end child early and forced marriage. To reach this goal, Canada is raising awareness about child forced marriage, early and forced marriage, investing in projects that prevent the practice, and supporting girls and women who are child brides by building partnerships to fully implement the 2030 Agenda. All sectors, including health and education, must be action to end child, early, and forced marriage. It also requires the participation of UN agencies, governments, Canadian and international civil society partners, and local community groups to empower girls and women, mobilize families and communities, provide trauma-informed applicable services, and establish and implement laws and policies. It's important to also support activities that end child, early, and forced marriage around the world, including working directly with girls and women to help them understand and exercise their rights, create safe space where girls and women can learn skills, and also learn about their health services available in their local communities. And lastly, working with families and communities to change attitudes and behaviors, including men and boys, and cultural and religious leaders, is important, as working with Parliament to raise awareness about the negative consequences of child, early, and forced marriage is punitive in working towards ending this injustice. Canada leads efforts to develop resolutions to end this practice. Member states at the United Nations General Assembly and at the United Rights Council are committed to take action. Canada developed the first ever United Nations General Assembly resolutions on child and forced marriage, which were passed in consensus in 2013, 14, 16, and 17. At the Human Rights Council, Canada worked with other countries to develop a sponsored resolution to eliminate child and forced marriage altogether. Canada continues to work closely with regional organizations, including the Commonwealth and the Francophone and African Union, to end child and forced marriage. If you are in Canada and think you may be taken to another country for a forced marriage, try to avoid traveling abroad if all is possible. It could be much more difficult to leave the forced marriage situation in another country altogether. Also, try as best as you can to contact a person you trust to help you. We understand that sometimes police officers may not be the most direct source of comfort or care for those experiencing trauma, but possibly even a social worker, a women's shelter, a youth shelter, a school counselor, or any type of welfare agency or anti-violence agency, or even victim support centers. Lastly, contacting Global Affairs Canada Consular Services for information about steps that you can take to protect yourself and possible resources available in the specific province or territory of where you live. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope it was helpful, and take care.